A lone human captain stands on a blood-red ridge, his weapon still hot from battle, facing the towering drake whose arm he has just severed. Yet in the silence between them, the enemy speaks of a threat so great it could erase both their worlds in days. With hostile forces closing in, they must decide in moments whether to finish the fight or forge the most unlikely alliance in history. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The wind howled across Dusk Ridge as the last light of day bled into a deep crimson sky. Jagged rocks cut through the ground like broken teeth. Captain Bren Phalos stood with his knees bent, his breathing heavy inside his cracked helmet. In his right hand, the plasma saber hissed softly, its edge glowing with fading heat. In front of him lay a severed limb, black scales glinting in the dying light. The limb still twitched, muscles firing their last commands from nerves that refused to die. The owner of that limb stood a short distance away. Veyron, a towering drake commander, 7 meters from head to tail. His scales shimmered like molten glass cooling into stone, each plate marred by fresh wounds. His molten amber eyes locked onto Bren. "Give me a reason not to end this now," Bren said. His voice was low and flat. Every muscle in his body ached, but his tone carried the weight of command. His armor integrity was broken in 4 places. Pain radiated from a deep gash in his side, each breath stabbing like a blade. Veyron's chest expanded, smoke curling from his nostrils. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rock grinding against steel. "Because without me, your people will not last 27 days. Bren gave a short laugh that made him wince. "Threats? I just took your arm, and this is what you open with?" He gestured toward the still smoking limb with the saber. "Not a threat," Veyron replied. "A fact." The air between them vibrated with tension. Above, a dark shape of storm clouds gathered, swirling from the magnetic fields that plagued this region. Far in the distance, lightning lit the sky, jagged and white. Bren's visor flashed an alert. His reinforcements were delayed by 50 minutes due to interference from the mountain's charged atmosphere. "You have 30 seconds, Bren said. The counter started in his display. Veyron's pupils narrowed. "The Devourers are coming. They strip the stars and leave nothing. Your military detected their scout 6 days ago, but marked it as a comet. They believe they have months. They have hours." Bren's suit sensors scanned Veyron's body temperature and breathing rhythm. All indicators matched truth, or a lie so perfect it fooled advanced xenobiological metrics. "Why would you care if humans survive?" Bren asked. His finger hovered over the saber's trigger, ready to ignite a deadly surge. Veyron lowered his head until his eyes were level with Bren's visor. "The same reason I came here alone. The same reason I did not crush you when I had the chance. Some of us believe the prophecy of the Twin Dawns." The phrase struck a hidden chord in Bren. The Twin Dawns prophecy was classified. Only the highest levels of Earth's command knew it existed. Veyron's voice deepened. "You took my arm. I could demand vengeance. Instead, I offer alliance. My knowledge of the Devourer's weaknesses, your people's adaptability. Together, we may endure." Another alert filled Bren's visor. Incoming signals. Hostile. Both human and drake forces closing fast. There would be no time for long debate. "If you are lying," Bren said, lowering his weapon slightly, "I will finish the job." Veyron's mouth curved in something that might have been a grim smile. "If I am lying, neither of us will live to regret it." The seconds ticked down. The air felt heavier, charged with the static of approaching storms and the silent weight of a decision that could change history. Bren's mind raced. He had been sent here to kill Veyron, the commander blamed for 3 destroyed human outposts. Now the same enemy offered a chance to face something worse. The voice of his training whispered caution. The voice of his instinct whispered survival. He deactivated the saber. The blade dimmed to nothing. "How do we start?" Bren asked. "Like this," Veyron replied. The drake extended his remaining forelimb. Massive claws that could shred a vehicle now opened in a gesture of truce. For a moment, the scene was absurd. A battle-worn human captain, covered in dust and blood, shaking hands with a creature that had been his sworn enemy. The wind tore at their armor and scales. The ground beneath them was still stained with the heat of their fight. Bren stepped forward. His armored glove met Veyron's claw. The metal clinked softly against scale. A silent agreement passed between them. Not trust, not yet, but recognition that alone both would fall. Together they had a chance. In the distance, the storm roared louder. The first flashes of lightning revealed the shapes of forces closing in from both sides. Bren knew this moment would not last, but it was enough to begin. Veyron released his grip and glanced toward the shadowed mountains. "We must leave this place. If either side finds us now, the alliance dies before it is born." Bren nodded. "Then we move." As they turned away from the severed limb and the battlefield that had nearly been their graves, neither could know how history would remember this night. But in that fleeting moment, under the blood-red sky of Dusk Ridge, a human and a drake walked side by side toward a future that neither had imagined hours before. The mountains around Orem Citadel rose like jagged knives into a pale morning sky. Cold air slid down the slopes, carrying the scent of stone and iron. Captain Bren Thalos moved carefully along a narrow trail carved into the cliff face. Each step sent a jolt of pain through his side, where the gash still burned. Behind him came the steady, heavy steps of Veyron, the towering Drake commander, now wearing a crude mechanical arm, built from shuttle wreckage and stripped armor plating. The device was functional, but far from elegant. Then, cables ran along the length, connecting to a small power unit strapped to Veyron's back. Every movement made the arm whir softly, its joints adjusting with precise clicks. Bren kept his eyes forward, knowing that the sight of the drake in daylight would be enough to send most soldiers into a panic. Orem Citadel was hidden in plain sight. From a distance, it looked like nothing more than another ridge face, dotted with scrub and weathered stone. But Bren knew the subtle markers, the seams where massive gates met rock, the faint shimmer of active sensors tracking every movement. As they approached, Bren adjusted the torn edges of his uniform. Without his armor, every breath felt sharper, the cracked ribs pressing against his lungs. He kept his voice steady. "Remember the plan. I talk, you keep your head down and look as non-threatening as possible." Veyron's amber eyes narrowed in amusement. "Perhaps I should attempt to appear friendly. Maybe smile." "Let's not push our luck," Bren replied. They reached a flat section of rock near the base of the ridge. Bren placed his gloved hand against what seemed like an ordinary stone slab. "Captain Bren Thalos, authorization code Delta 9 Sigma, emergency override." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a deep vibration moved through the ground. The rock face split down the middle, panels sliding back to reveal a long white corridor, lit by cold, steady light. A line of soldiers in dark combat armor stood at attention inside. Rifles were raised, their barrels locked onto Bren's chest. A tall officer with sharp features stepped forward. "Captain Thalos, Reports said you engaged the Drake commander. Your survival was unexpected. Her gaze shifted past him. Her jaw tightened when she saw Veyron. And this is your choice of company? Major Kesrin, Bren said, I need to see the council immediately. The situation has changed. You brought the enemy commander to our gates, she said, her voice calm but edged with steel. Bren took a step forward, placing himself between her and Veyron. I brought our only chance to survive the Devourers. A murmur ran down the line of soldiers. The word carried weight. It was whispered in intelligence reports, but dismissed by most as a distant theory. Major Kesrin's eyes stayed locked on Bren. The Devourers are hypothetical. Not anymore. Veyron rumbled from behind him. The deep voice filled the corridor. I have seen their work. They reduce worlds to ash in days. The Major hesitated. Bren knew the look. Recognition and fear fighting against years of protocol. She lowered her weapons slowly. Escort them to the council chamber, she ordered. Then to the soldiers, expand the access protocols for a large consultant. The corridor's walls hummed as hidden scanners swept over them. The air was dry and sterile. Bren kept his stride even, though each step jarred his ribs. Veyron's tail brushed the walls, leaving faint scratches in the polished surface. At the chamber doors, they paused. Veyron eyed the narrow frame. Your buildings are not built for giants. Try to squeeze through without breaking anything, Bren said. The Drake crouched low, folding his wings tight. The mechanical arm clicked as he maneuvered. After a moment of awkward shuffling, he emerged on the other side, leaving a few scuffed panels in his wake. Inside, the council chamber was a wide circle of polished stone and reinforced steel. 5 leaders sat at a curved table. Behind them, large screens displayed the faces of off-world advisors and officials. Every expression ranged from suspicion to open hostility. Counselor Terran, an older woman with silver hair, spoke first. Captain Thalos, your report stated you engaged this Drake with the intent to eliminate him, and yet you arrive here together. Explain. Bren stood straight despite the ache in his side. During my mission, I discovered a threat greater than our war. The Devourers are real, and they are coming. Murmurs rippled around the room. And your proof? Terran asked. Veyron stepped forward. The claws of his good hand tapped the table's surface. His mechanical arm rotated, revealing small projectors. A holographic image formed in the air above them. A great volcanic world hung in space, crowned with clouds and ringed by molten seas. This was my home, Dravok Prime, 23 days ago, Veyron said. The image shifted. Now the planet was a hollow shell. Its surface was gray and lifeless. Its core was missing. The Devourers consume everything, he said. They leave nothing behind. The room fell silent. Bren spoke again. Our deep space scans match his account. The Devourer's scout is already in our system. They will arrive sooner than our models predict. We cannot face them alone. A counselor with a heavy build leaned forward. Even if we believe you, why ally with them? He asked, gesturing to Veyron. We have fought them for years. Because divided, we will fall, Bren answered. Together, we have a chance. Eyes shifted from Bren to Veyron, then back to the hologram of the ruined world. The air in the chamber was tight, charged with the weight of an impossible choice. Bren knew this was only the beginning. Convincing the council was the first step. Ahead lay the real battle, and the clock was already ticking. The council chamber of Aurum Citadel felt colder than the mountain air outside. Stone walls rose high, their surfaces lined with subtle energy shielding. The 5 council members sat in a half circle, their faces lit by the glow of hovering display panels. The largest screen still showed the shattered remains of Dravok Prime, the lifeless world that Veyron had revealed. Counselor Terran leaned forward, her silver hair catching the light. "Captain Thalos, this is a claim without precedent. You are asking us to consider a full alliance with our oldest enemy. The people will see it as betrayal." Bren stood at attention. His uniform was torn and dusted with dried blood, but his voice carried steady authority. "Counselor, if we continue fighting the Drakes, the Devourers will destroy both our species. Our war will mean nothing when there is nothing left to fight for." Veyron's gaze swept the chamber, his molten amber eyes steady. "My kind is proud, but we are not blind. The Devourers grow stronger with each world they consume. They do not negotiate. They do not leave survivors." A younger counselor with sharp features shook his head. "You expect us to trust you, you who commanded the assault on 3 of our colonies." Veyron inclined his head slightly. "Those were acts of war in a different time. I did not come here to rewrite the past. I came because the future will not exist for either of us unless we act now." Bren took a step forward. "We have a weapon, or rather, the beginnings of one, the resonance breaker. It can disrupt the Devourer's shared mind. Without their coordination, their power is broken. But it requires 2 things neither of us can provide alone." He gestured to Veyron. "Drake Heartstone crystals and human quantum cores." A display lit up above the council table, showing the compact device. Inside its casing, streams of data scrolled across miniature projection fields. "The technology is sound," Veyron said, "but it cannot be deployed in a single vessel. It must be amplified across thousands of ships. Together, those ships can cover the entire system." Counselor Terran narrowed her eyes. "How many ships are we speaking of?" Bren hesitated for only a moment. 14,000. The chamber erupted in protests. Voices rose in disbelief. "We do not have the resources," one counselor said sharply. "Even if we started now, building that many ships would take years." "Not building," Veyron interrupted. "Growing." A hush fell over the room. Veyron's mechanical arm clicked open at the forearm. Inside, nestled in protective compartments, were dozens of small, gleaming organic metal seeds. They pulsed faintly, as if alive. "These are Aurora vessel seeds," he said, "born from both Drake and human science. With the right catalysts, they will grow into full ships in hours, not years." Bren added, "The design uses living components and hybrid systems. Once matured, each ship is powered by the fusion of Heartstone crystals and quantum cores. But the seeds are only half of what we need. The other half is still hidden, guarded by those who believe in this alliance as much as we do." The younger counselor crossed his arms. "So you admit you have been working with Drake collaborators during the war?" Bren met his gaze without flinching. "I call them forward-thinking soldiers. And yes, because some of us saw this day coming." The main display flickered, showing new sensor readings. The Devourer fleet had moved closer to the system's edge. Their strange, jagged forms drifted in formation, their surfaces shifting like living metal. 5 hours, Veyron said. "No more." Counselor Terran looked at each member in turn. "If what they say is true, this is the only plan we have," the heavy-set counselor spoke up. "And if it is a trick, we hand the Drakes the means to overwhelm us." "If it is a trick," Bren said, "there will be nothing left to overwhelm." The chamber went quiet again. Outside the shielded walls, the faint hum of the Citadel's defense grid was the only sound. Veyron straightened, his scales catching the light. "I stand here with one arm gone, cut from me by your captain. And yet, I came into your stronghold, unarmed, knowing I might die here. Ask yourselves if you would have done the same. Bren felt the tension shift. The words had struck something deeper than strategy. They had struck pride. Counselor Terran drew a long breath. Very well, we will vote. Each member touched the surface of their panel. The results flashed instantly. 3-4. 2 against. Terran turned to Bren. You have your alliance, Captain. But I warn you, any betrayal will end with the full force of what remains of humanity. Veyron inclined his head. And I expect the same if your side turns. For the first time since entering the chamber, Bren allowed himself to breathe easier. The Council's choice had been made, but the relief was short-lived. The updated sensor feed showed the Devourer fleet accelerating. Time was running out. Terran stood. Then let us waste none of it. You have your 4 hours, Captain. Bring us the seeds, bring us the catalysts, and bring us the chance to survive. Bren nodded once. We will. As they turned to leave the chamber, the weight of the decision pressed down on both human and Drake alike. They had crossed the first bridge. Ahead lay the storm. The halls of Orem Citadel shook with urgency. Runners moved between stations, carrying orders and equipment. The alliance had been approved, but approval meant nothing without action. Outside the chamber, Captain Bren Thalos and Veyron walked side by side, both moving quickly toward the launch bays buried deep within the mountain. 5 hours had been reduced to less than 4. Every minute lost was a minute closer to the Devourers breaking into Earth's orbit. The Citadel's command screens showed their advance as a dark swarm, each ship twisting in unnatural shapes that bent light around them. In the lower levels, guarded doors opened into a vast chamber filled with pulsing light. Rows of growth tanks lined the walls. Inside each, an aurora seed floated in nutrient-rich fluid. They glowed faintly. Veyron moved toward one of the tanks, placing his clawed hand against the glass. These are more than machines, he said. Each one carries part of my people's strength and part of yours. Bren stood beside him, and they'll need both to survive what's coming. The process began with a signal from the control deck. One by one, the tanks lit brighter, the seeds expanding and taking shape. Organic plates formed along their frames. In minutes, the first vessels began to resemble sleek ships, their hulls shimmering with both scale-like patterns and alloyed armor. Teams of human pilots and Drake navigators stood ready, paired for each ship. The air was filled with the sound of machinery, low voices giving instructions, and the hum of growing vessels. In the command bay above, Counselor Terran watched the progress. Status, she called. First wave of Aurora vessels maturing in 30 minutes. A technician replied. A 3-over expert had an update. The Devourers were closing faster than predicted. We may not have 4 hours, he said. Veyron's gaze stayed fixed on the growing ships. Then we launch as soon as the first wave is ready. The resonance breakers can still work in stages. As the minutes passed, the first row of Aurora vessels detached from their tanks. Crews moved quickly to load the resonance breaker units into their cores. Bright arcs of energy flowed through the ship's systems, activating both the Drake Heartstone crystals and the human quantum cores in perfect synchronization. Bren met with the combined crews before launch. Listen carefully. Once you engage, you will be at the front of this fight. The resonance breaker will not destroy the Devourers. It will scatter them. Give us openings to strike. Your job is to hold those openings until the rest of the fleet arrives. The pilots and navigators nodded. There was no ceremony. There was only urgency. Above ground, the camouflaged mountain face began to shift. Massive doors slid open, revealing launch channels that pointed toward the pale horizon. The first Aurora vessels rose on columns of light. their engines blending the steady roar of human technology with the deeper, resonant hum of Drake energy. Bren and Veyran stood at the edge of the platform, watching them go. Veyran's voice was low. "When this is over, whatever the outcome, they will speak of this day." "If there's anyone left to speak," Bren replied. High above the planet, the first aurora wave met the edge of the Devourer swarm. The resonance breakers activated, sending invisible pulses through space. The Devourer's formation wavered. Some ships broke away from the main swarm, drifting without coordination. In the Citadel's war room, the change was immediate. "It's working," a strategist said, her voice tight with controlled hope. More vessels launched, the fleet growing larger with each wave. The once empty sky began to fill with the gleam of aurora hulls, light flashing off their hybrid armor. Bren and Veyran moved to the command deck, side by side. Orders flowed from both human and Drake officers, their voices overlapping but aligned. There was no talk of past battles, only of the fight ahead. As the third wave launched, a sudden tremor rocked the Citadel. Distant alarms rang through the structure. "Impact detected," a voice called. "Devourer scout ship breached the upper atmosphere." Veyran turned to Bren. "We are out of time." "Then we go now," Bren said. Together, they moved toward an Aurora vessel still being prepped. Technicians scrambled to clear the way. Moments later, the ship's canopy closed over them. From the ground, the Aurora rose with a smooth, rising glow. It joined the fleet already locked in the opening strikes of the battle. Years later, Bren would speak of that launch not as the beginning of the war's end, but as the true start of the Horizon Pact. It was not a pact written in documents or marked with seals. It was made in shared glances between pilots and navigators, in the brief nods before launch, in the unspoken understanding that survival was their common victory. It was the moment when two enemies became one force, not through trust alone, but through necessity, courage, and the will to see the horizon beyond the battle. And as the Aurora fleet spread across the dark sky, facing the swarm that threatened to erase them all, the Horizon Pact became more than a name. It became the thin line between life and the silence of the void.